633.
If you want to follow along with the reading for Brother Rich's lesson this morning, it's found in Mark chapter 6, starting with verse 32. Mark 6, verse 32. And they departed into a desert place by ship privately, and the people saw them departing, and many knew him, and ran afoot thither out of the cities, and outwent them, and came together unto him. And Jesus, when he came out, saw much people, and was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep, not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. When the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, This is a desert place, and now the time is far past. Send them away, that they may go into the country round about, and into the villages, and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat.
Greatly appreciate your presence this morning. Looks like we have a good attendance today. We're glad to have every one of you here. Have you ever been in the middle of nowhere? I guess it depends on one's perspective. We were in Arkansas, Mountain View, Arkansas, a week ago, and even though the size of the city, it's actually the county seat. It said 2,800 and I think 33 people, and so I was like, well, what does that mean? I said 3 Swayzes. You know, everything's a Swayze. You know, like, okay, we're in Indianapolis, and I said, well, that's 700 and some Swayzes or 800 and some Swayzes. Well, how big is Arkansas? And I said, I think either Arkansas or Indianapolis have about the same amount of people, maybe one more than the other. But when you think about, you take away Indianapolis and it's about the population of Arkansas, it tells you a lot. There's a lot of little towns. And I remember when my father died, a great deal of people from here came to the visitation. That was greatly appreciated because it's a little ways from here to Swayze. And Alan said, you were right, this is the middle of nowhere. And I don't remember if I said that or not, but I couldn't disagree. But it was, but it is your hometown, and you go, well, this is a place. But it depends on your perspective, of course. Some little town inhabitants don't necessarily consider themselves to be nowhere but others do it anyway. And big town people tend to think of small places that way. The big town of Lebanon, now if you've never been to Swayze, Lebanon is a big town in comparison. So where is our nowhere? What can we do to get to the better place, the somewhere? Well, as was read in our hearing, in Mark the 6th chapter, we have in verse 30, it reads, in verse 30 it says, And the apostles gathered themselves together to Jesus and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, Come you yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. And they departed into a desert place by ship privately. And the people saw them departing, And many knew him, and ran afoot thither out of all cities, and outwent them, and came together unto him. And Jesus, when he came out, saw much people, and was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. A desert place, an isolated place. Generally, this is a place not populated or not heavily so, and not necessarily the Sahara Desert where there's a bunch of sand and camels walking about and cactus. It could be just a place where people don't necessarily reside. And we drove through a lot of places where last week where people don't necessarily reside. And, you know, we talked about different things. We didn't go the way this year where there were two churches of Christ across the street from each other. There is such a thing. And I said, do they do this to each other as they go to services? It makes you wonder what the story is. How do you have two congregations of the same stripe across the highway from one another? But there they are. We saw a lot of places where you saw people with their house in the mountain. And they said, well, how do you have an even place? I said, well, they had to cut into the mountain to make it even so your house wouldn't fall down the mountain. We saw places like this. And it's a good opportunity to teach for Jesus in these verses. You know, okay, all these people have followed me. He had great compassion, so he begins to teach them many things in verse 34. But as time goes on, verse 35, and when the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, this is a desert place, and now the time is far past. Send them away that they may go into the country round about, and into villages, and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. And he answered and said to them, give you them to eat. And they say to him, shall we go and buy 200 penny worth of bread and give them to eat? It's late. Not much food to be had. Not much available. No place to buy it. They were, we shall say, in the middle of nowhere. And I saw a lot of middle of nowhere a week ago. We're driving around and we see houses, and I think my daughter's driving and saying, where do they go eat? Where, you know, how did they? Oh, I said, no, of course they go and eat somewhere. They go find places. It might be further than you're used to. When you live 2 miles from a Dairy Queen, you don't think about people who might live 50 miles from a grocery store. You think ahead. And in verse 38, it says, he said to them, how many loaves have ye? Go and see. And when they knew, they say 5 and 2 fishes. And he commanded them to make all sit down by companies upon the green grass. And they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fishes divided he among them all. And they did all eat, and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments and of the fishes, and they that did eat of the loaves were about 5,000 men. So no one is truly alone out in the middle of nowhere when they are with the Son of God. They had food because Jesus could just say, we have food. 5,000 people. They fed 5 Swayzes. That's the new standard of measure for you. You know, forget the miles. They just say 5 Swayzes, you're fine. But is this place the middle of nowhere? I said I think I would call it the middle of nowhere. In Hebrews, the 11th chapter, and verse 13. Hebrews 11 and 13, we'll turn there. In verse 13, it says, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. But now they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. Also in 1 Peter, the 2nd chapter, verses 9 through 12. 1 Peter 2, and in verse 9, it says, But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him that hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of God, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. Dearly beloved, I beseech you, as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts, which war against the soul, having your conversation or conduct honest among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works which they shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation. We are strangers. We are visitors in this world. We're pilgrims. Believe me, you go to a place like Arkansas where no one talks like you, and no one acts like you. You know, people are saying, do they fly the flag? And I said, yes, I saw people flying the flag. It was the stars and bars, but they were flying a flag. I've seen that there. Now, did I see lots of American flags? Sure. Lots of them. It's a different place in many ways. But we're just passing through. You know, I said to Sheila, this is quiet. I could get used to this. You want to move here? And Sheila says, it's a nice place to visit. Not to stay forever. Have you ever asked your wife or spouse, saying, if you could live anywhere, where would you live? My wife always says, here. No. We can still live here, but if you had to pick a place, where would you live? And she says, here. She doesn't play well. But this world is not my home, as Mountain View is not our home, apparently. And really, what we call home might not be the place we want to be, because there is a home for us. 2 Corinthians 5. 2 Corinthians 5, and in verse 1. Verse 1, it says, Now, for we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed upon with our house which is from heaven. If so be that being clothed, we shall not be found naked. For we that are in this tabernacle do groan, being burdened, not for that we would be unclothed, but clothed upon, that mortality might be swallowed up of life. Now he that hath wrought us for the selfsame thing is God, who also hath given unto us the earnest of the Spirit. Therefore we are always confident, knowing that whilst we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. While we're in this body, we're here. But we are absent from our heavenly home. There's a place to go. You know, people are saying, after my father passed away, it was brought up, hey, they've got 2 plots, but they traded the plots for burial costs and for vaults. And I said, okay, how much? And I signed the contract, and I got a place for Sheila and I to be planted one day. And is that going to be my home? That's where my body's going to rot. But that's about it. That's not going to be my heavenly home. There's a heavenly home awaiting for us. Our heavenly homes, in John 14, Jesus talks about that there are many mansions awaiting us. John 14:1 through verse 4, it says, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also, and whither I go you know, and the way you know." Heavenly homes, the mansions are waiting for us, but we have to make certain that we have a place and acquire it. This isn't a spiritual nowhere to go to these mansions. It's a glorious home, a place that we want to have. We should have these things. You know, in Revelation 15 and in verse 1, it says, "And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, several angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God, and they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy, for all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest." Don't you want to hear the heavenly host singing the song of Moses and the Lamb? We sing a lot of a song talking about this. I can only imagine how impressive that would be. I can't imagine. You know, there are descriptions of heaven. You know, John 14, 1-4, we just read, talking about the many mansions. Revelation 21:22 talks about the glorious, you know, the great sights you can read about. But the desert place, apparently not much life, if any. Consider Jesus providing for his followers. You see, hell is an awful place. It's not meant for us. You know, Matthew 25:41. In verse 41 it says, "Then shall he say also to them on the left hand, Depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was a hungered, and you gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you took me not in. Naked, and you clothed me not. Sick and in prison, you visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee a hungered, or thirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, and the righteous into life eternal." In other words, a place prepared for the devil and his angels. This is not nowhere. This is a where. But it's not a place we want to be. It's the second death that's referred to in Revelation 2, verses 10-11. Also in Revelation 21, 5-8. This is the spiritual death. Yes, we will know what's going on, but it is a death, a separation from God, something that we do not want to encounter. Revelation 2:10, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that you may be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that hath an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death." And Revelation 21, 5-8, verse 5, it says, "And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. He said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. We don't want this second death. We want life after this life. So does nowhere really exist? You know what? Everywhere is a where. It's just, where do you want to go? Where are your priorities? We are called twice. There are two resurrections. Two resurrections? Well, in John the 5th chapter, in John 5, and we'll start with verse 25. In verse 25, it says, Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. For as the Father hath life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself, and hath given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in the which all that are in the grave shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, they that have done good, to the resurrection of life. That's your first resurrection. And they that have done evil, unto the resurrection of damnation. That's the second one. We'll have one or the other. I can of my own self do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. Two resurrections. Although I remember going to a Jehovah's Witness funeral, it was my grandmother's funeral, and the Jehovah's Witness preacher quoted this, but he only quoted the one resurrection because they don't believe in hell, so their version of the Bible cuts out that reference. But I understand there might be one or two references to hell that they forgot to edit out, so if you follow their book, there is a hell, they just don't want to admit it. So, who calls us? 1 Corinthians 7 and in verse 20, let every man abide in the same calling wherein he was called. Art thou called being a servant? Care not for it, but if thou mayest be made free, use it rather. For he that is called in the Lord being a servant is the Lord's freeman. Likewise also he that is called being free is Christ's servant. You are bought with a price. Be not ye the servants of men. Brethren, let every man wherein he is called therein abide with God. We want to make our calling and election sure. 2 Peter 1. Almost there. Almost done with the lesson. 2 Peter 1, and we'll go to verse 10 and 11. Wherefore, the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure. For if you do these things, you shall never fall. For so an entrance shall be ministered unto you abundantly into the everlasting kingdom of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Make the calling sure. Make your election sure. In other words, make certain that you get to heaven. Do everything you can to get to heaven. Because if you've lost that, you're not going to be nowhere. You're either going to be in heaven or you're going to be in hell. And it won't be Mountain View. It won't be Swayze. And it won't even be Lebanon. You're going to be somewhere. So it's time to get ourselves to the best somewhere and not nowhere. You know, have you heard the word as in Romans 10:17? If you've heard the word, then you have to decide, do I believe this? That's something you have to ask yourself. Do I believe this? Mark 16:16, he who believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. To repent, as in Acts 2:38. To confess, as in Acts 8:37. To be baptized, Romans 6:1-6 talks about this, and we did read Revelation 2 and 10, be faithful unto death. Where are you going? You're going to go somewhere. The middle of nowhere. It might be here. It might be Swayze. It might be Evening Shade, Arkansas, if you remember the show Evening Shade. I found out there were 2 of them. Not just one Evening Shade, there were 2 Evening Shade, Arkansas. We didn't stop there. We were busy getting to Mountain View. So where do you stand this day? Are you going somewhere? If you know that somewhere, is it heaven or is it hell? One day, you're going to go to bed, and you might wake up dead. I've talked about this earlier. You know, that's what my father did. On the evening of May 16th, 2023, my father went to bed, went to sleep. He never woke up. If your soul is not ready for that, you need to make it good now, because you may not have that opportunity even tonight at 6 o'clock. The invitation applies to you in any fashion. Please come forward, make your wants known while we stand and sing.